For the Champions League via the Europa League Final are Tottenham and Manchester United. Can this be their season's salvation? It's nearly upon us. I think this might be one of the most eagerly anticipated, and not necessarily for the right reasons, Europa League Final. Yes, it's between two Premier League clubs, but they've had such terrible seasons in the league, such inconsistent seasons in the league for various reasons, which I'm sure we'll come to. And now one of them will be playing Champions League football next season.
I know, it does. It's baffling. It's baffling.
And
I think that they're very fortunate, these two teams. I think Wolves, you have to say, probably as well. West Ham as well. Very fortunate that Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton had the seasons they had, because if just two of those teams came with anything more, we could have seen Spurs or Man United go down this year. People say, what are you talking? We could have. It's been so bad. How many wins?
Teams have gone down on like 42. Well, once.
Normally 40 is the minimum benchmark.
Was it West Ham 42? I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. And they aim for 40, but usually it's high 30s in a normal season. But that's only where they are right now.
I don't know how you feel as a Tottenham fan or a Man United fan when you win. You obviously have got to be happy that you won something. But the consistency, what you're judged on for the season they've had is arguably, both of them, the worst seasons they've had. Probably easily in the Premier League. Easily.
It will be their well, it already is their most losses, and it'll be their lowest Premier League finishes as well.
You say you're baffled. Before I used to watch Man United. Obviously, I had Berbatov, who played for Man United. I used to watch. I used to be eager to watch that team. I haven't watched them. There's no excitement about watching them. Obviously, with Tottenham is different. I'm well connected with Ange Postecoglou, obviously, through Celtic. I want him to do well, but they've just been awful, both teams. There was nothing. There was so many stories from within the camp and the issues, obviously the rush through, the bad results, blaming on the players, then the manager, then the board. It's been a mess. But then it can become one of the most successful seasons for both teams.
In respect of a trophy.
Yes,
exactly.
But Manchester United have done this when they've had, and look, they haven't had a season like this in the league. But even when they've had poor seasons in the league, they've been able to deliver on a trophy, which has kind of got some managers out of jail. Well, not all managers, because Louis van Gaal was sacked mid press conference pretty much after winning the FA Cup. But this league form, that's appalling.
I think the issue will be as well is that in those scenarios, and the case of Ange at Spurs, is it just feel like whoever wins, it's a plaster that is temporarily covering up a whole ream of issues underneath, whether that's structurally, culturally, recruitment, whatever it may be, coaching. And I think you do see that at both teams. I think maybe for Spurs, this can offer more of a springboard for them, because there's been, the whole conversation, even when Mourinho is there, about the culture of the club and the pressure to win something, and maybe this could turn it for them. But I think with Manchester United, for me, it feels like this wouldn't change anything. It'd be a trophy, but not much more than that, because the issues run so deep there, whether it's the recruitment of the players and the squad that simply isn't good enough right now, or structurally, when it goes up to the ballroom in the wider issues. So it is, the discourse on it is so remarkable, because it's such a strange scenario to have these two English teams going in who, at this point, could have been in the relegation conversation. It's bizarre.
It's interesting you're saying that it won't change anything. Do you think whoever win it, either Man United, Tottenham, they will keep their managers going forward? There is one. If that won't make a change.
I think Manchester United are more likely to keep a manager, because I think they want to give him a summer transfer window and make that happen. But he already sort of looks like a broken man at this point.
Maybe that's why he wanted to come in at the end of the season, and they said, no, start now. Because he maybe saw this coming. Because this is as bad as I've ever seen any Man United team. But the thing with his flow is that he does need the summer. In respect of recruitment, and how much money is he going to get when we know how much they're scrimping and scraping around the place, saving money. People are not even, I don't think staff are even being able to go. I think people are paying for the staff to go and watch the game. So you look at it and you do worry for United, because you're thinking, okay, the summer they'll sort it out and they'll buy some players and they'll change this and that. But you can't even put a marker on that, because they constantly complain about not having money now.
It's Amorim who's been paying for some of the
Exactly.
staff to
It's
go over
terrible.
with their families to get. Well, certainly helping out in terms of transport and things like that. I think what you said about the culture at Spurs is really interesting because of your knowledge of how Ange Postecoglou works, and he's one of the managers who's complained about the culture at Spurs, that it isn't that winning culture, and I wonder what that looks like from his point of view, and whether, as the man who always wins a trophy in his second season, whether that's something that he can bring.
Yeah, you have to create that kind of mentality. You have to bring that culture. And in fairness, as much as I love Ange Postecoglou, I believe that what he does, he haven't managed to adapt to the English football. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to understand and adapt in certain games. You have to understand the Premier League is completely different. Mm-hmm. You've got every team is good, everybody's got great players, and he haven't managed to do that. Yeah, European football has been great adventure, but he has to understand that he has to become smarter, and if you want that winning culture, he has to bring players and staff and people who believe in that and will follow everything he needs to.
Champions League football will certainly help him attract them. So who do we think then? Manchester United or Tottenham?
You know something, I do believe
Go
that.
on, right, yeah. I want to hear that answer.
I think Man United.
Because almost a history point with them.
Yeah, being in that final. And I think as long as you've got Bruno Fernandes in your team and playing against that kind of opposition, you have to fancy Manchester United.
I'm going for Spurs.
And confidently going for Spurs as well.
Yeah, I confidently going for Spurs. I believe that if they click, they do play some incredible football. I think that will be the last chance for maybe Ange to save his job. And I think that big stage will be excitement for the players. But Man United is Man United, and they have shown when they've been against the odds, they can produce.
Go on, Flo.
You never know what you're going to get with these two, that's for sure. Terrible runs going in, but I have to say, the route that United have had to the final, beating Lyon, beating Bilbao, I didn't expect them to win either of those games. I'm going with United.
Nice.
Yeah, because you think that the form that they've shown in that competition might just be enough to carry them through the final. So we've got 2 for Manchester United, 1 for Tottenham, but either way, we will be talking about that, I would imagine, next week, which is the last one of the season next week, isn't it? So we will see you for that one. Everything will be wrapped up. All those predictions that we're having to make about who qualifies for the Champions League, it will be done. We'll know who's done it, and we'll be talking about it this time next week. See you then. Bye-bye.
I want to start by getting into, of course, the only thing on my mind right now, Manchester United up against Tottenham next week. I'm in work on Thursday morning. I'm wondering how I'm going to feel or whether I'm even going to come in or not. But winless in 8 Premier League games now, Ben. Ruben Amorim says he's embarrassed by the Premier League record. What have you made of his start at Old Trafford?
Well, if I, as a Charlton fan, can be here talking about Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup, I think you can make it in. Look, I think it's a really tough one, isn't it? Manchester United, Ruben Amorim. He has had an incredibly difficult start, I think it's fair to say. In person, I think he's been great. I've had the pleasure of a couple of interviews with him, obviously done plenty of press conferences with him. He is great for a quote, a dream as far as we're concerned in terms of the things he said about being the worst team in Manchester United history, possibly regarded as the worst manager. They're almost, it's objectively their worst season in 50 years. He's only won 13 of 26 in the Premier League, which is not good enough for Manchester United, is it? This trophy would, in many ways, save their season. We had the same discussion, didn't we, about Pep Guardiola and Manchester City in the FA Cup. Well, the Europa League is a bigger trophy for United because of what it brings. That Champions League qualification has the potential to transform the club. We look at how much they'll need to change for next year, and having the revenue for the Champions League can only help, can't it? Help that rebuild, that restructure. Lots of pressure on Ruben Amorim, though, because he has to start to deliver. He knows that. Yeah. He's sat there in the chair at either Old Trafford or at Carrington at the training base, and he's said quite simply, I know the size of this club. I know we have to win. And he's not got enough out of that group of players. They've only got wins in the last few months against teams in the bottom 3 and in the Europa League. So in many senses, the Europa League's been where they've played their best football. Yeah. That'll give him hope. in the biggest of matches, they've tended to do a little bit better. This is a big match, so I think United will win, personally. I do think they'll win the final. But it could change, almost like a sliding doors moment. A win takes United in one direction, defeat takes them possibly in another.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it?
Possibly.
We probably, Tottenham need a trophy more. But Manchester United, I would argue, need Champions League football more. So it's kind of lose-lose situation, really. There's no win-win here, I don't think. But are they prepared enough to play both Champions League and Premier League football and compete in both next season? Because Ruben Amorim, Ben, he's not even sure himself.
No, well, they're not. And he knows that. I mean, he's said simply that they're not good enough many times because he's seeing what he's got to work with. He has now tested the players in a number of different environments, whether that is a game they should win, a game against a big club, a high-pressure game in Europe, a cup competition. He's seen what this squad is capable of, certainly playing in his system. He's seen who is suitable for his system. He has tried pretty much every player in the squad at various times. I mean, he's had to, and he's had injuries. They've been obviously very disruptive for him as well. He's tried some youngsters who he has, I think, cherry-picked to play specifically in positions where they maybe don't have the cover. I'm thinking of maybe Harry Amas coming in, for example, on the left, that kind of wing-back role, which is so crucial to his system, isn't it? If they do get in the Champions League, they'll need to recruit. There's no doubt about it. I mean, all the way through the team, really. I mean, we always talk about the spine. They haven't scored enough goals. So is a goal scorer their priority? Can they afford to get in a number 9 and one of those number 10 players? Possibly not. So where do you put your money there? Probably a central midfielder to take the load off of Kobe Mainoo and maybe replace Casemiro. Those wing-back areas are potentially vulnerable, and then maybe a centre-half as well. I mean, it's a huge potential rebuild for a club that, as we know, has consistently been making cuts across all departments to try and save money. The owner saying that they would have gone bust if they'd not taken the measures they had to restructure. It's a tricky situation.
It really is. Listen, Martin Samuel in the Sunday Times today, he actually believes that whatever happens in the Europa League final, they've got to stay with Ruben Amorim. And he says, despite all the points differentials, all the points that are trending downwards and all of the statistics, he says that, look at the pull quote at the bottom of the screen. If he went, those who put him in that position would need to go too. And here's why. He says, when they came knocking, he said at that point, I would rather come at the end of the season, not now. He said, I'd rather come when I could get my own players in, play the way that I want to play, rather than now with players that are totally unsuited to the style of football that enabled me to dominate Portuguese football. And what was said to him at the time was, if you don't come now, then we're going to get someone else and the opportunity might not come again. So it's got to be now. And now he's gone there, it's all gone very badly. Now you can maybe use a counter argument, well, why didn't he just play? And to be fair, Martin does, why didn't he just play with a system that would have suited the players? But the bottom line is that if you look at where the club are right now, if you look at the decision making at Manchester United, in Martin's view, which has seen Dan Ashworth come in and then leave, which before him had seen Erik ten Hag continued with after winning the FA Cup and backed in the summer with a pile of players and a pile of money that suddenly was all rendered useless when Ten Hag was sacked and Amorim was basically handed players that were not suited to the way that he wanted to play. It's really on the toes of the decision makers at United if suddenly there would be a third major change, major decision that would leave Manchester United in a no man's land. It's a really, really instructive piece by obviously a must-read columnist on a Sunday morning.
I just want to pick up on there because obviously I want to ask Spurs before we do run out of time. It's for better or worse here, but is divorce inevitable for Ange and Tottenham regardless of what happens, Darren?
Yeah, I think it might well be the case. But I tell you what's interesting about this one. Well, two things. Harry Redknapp in The Sun says today that actually he thinks Spurs have got a better squad and a better chance of winning the Europa League. The second thing is you do wonder whether Ange himself might take the chance to say, you know what, I'm going to walk away. He's done it a couple of times before when he's answered criticism by winning something and then walking away at his previous clubs. Could that be the case again with him right now? Because he is 90 minutes away from vindicating his claim that he always wins something in his second season. He's been open about the fact that he's been fighting a losing battle himself, trying to answer his critics. Now he's got the chance to do that. And what a mic drop it would be if he were to win the Europa League, get Tottenham into the Champions League, and then say, you know what, thanks, I'm off.
What are your thoughts on that then?
I mean, I like the idea of the Louis van Gaal moment, I have to say. You know, trophy, place it on the table in the press conference and basically say, that's me, I'm done. Thanks, mate. I've got an element of sympathy for Ange Postecoglou. They have been ripped apart by injuries. Think about how they started the season. You know, he's proved that when he gets his team playing in the right way and he's got all his players fit, they can be a match for anyone. They proved it at times last year, this year as well. But they seem to just be running out of steam, don't they? And I think that certainly Tottenham fans that I speak to, I think the tipping point has come whereby I think more want to change than don't. I don't think there's many left who are saying...
I do think a good manager can post bad numbers. I mean, not many people talk about the season when Pochettino got to the Champions League final. Final third of that season, they were all over the place. But people forget that because he got to the final. And I think with Spurs, if they were to win this thing, you're never going to forget the numbers, obviously, and the number of matches that have been lost in the domestic season, because it has been four. There's no way that you can get away from it. But as you say, there've been horrific injuries. They've been ripped apart. Morale has really taken a bit of a hit. I feel a lot of sympathy with him.
Right, let's talk Kulusevski. How big a loss is he going into this game, Darren?
Well, he's a huge loss because he can make goals, he can take goals. He has played centrally for a time at Spurs where he's been particularly effective. And, you know, he's an experienced player who they can call on in the big moments. But obviously not having him for this game is going to be a huge miss. Listen, Mikey Moore's a very talented young man, and you know there are a number of players who can stand in for him. But I think, as far as Postecoglou is concerned, he would love to have had Kulusevski. He'd have been terrific in a match like this.
He was one of their better players, wasn't he? He was one of the players that really stepped up when they were struggling earlier in the season. All eyes on Heung-min Son. Can he get fit, and can he rediscover just part of what he used to bring? Because he could be potentially a difference maker.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, Spurs have beaten United 3 times already this season. Will it be a fourth? Will it be the first silverware in a long time?
Welcome back to Sport Lab, where we break down the biggest matches in world football with sharp analysis and fearless predictions. And today, it doesn't get much bigger than this. The Europa League Final. Tottenham versus Manchester United, 2 fallen giants, 1 last shot at glory in Bilbao. Let's be honest, it's been a brutal Premier League season for both of these sides. United and Spurs are heading for historically bad finishes, but that could all be forgotten in 90 minutes. For Erik ten Hag's side, this is a chance to add another European trophy, their first since 2017. For Tottenham, a shot at rewriting history. No continental silverware since 1984. Let that sink in. Manchester United come in off a 1-0 loss to Chelsea. Flat, lacking bite, but never rule out a team with Bruno Fernandes in a final. As Roy Keane said, Bruno can produce magic, and United have the cup-winning know-how. Tottenham, meanwhile, were outclassed in a 2-0 defeat to Aston Villa. Even worse, Kulusevski is out injured. A massive blow. As Jamie Redknapp put it, this is a 50-50, but without Dejan, it leans towards United. Still, Spurs have the flair of Son, the speed of Brennan Johnson, and a burning desire to finally shake the bottle job tag. Could that fire be enough? United's strength lies in transition, with Bruno pulling strings and Rashford exploiting space. But defensively, they've looked leaky. It's been a revolving door at the back. Spurs under Ange Postecoglou will press high, dominate the ball, but that leaves them vulnerable to counters, especially against a United side that can turn defence into attack in seconds. The real question, who controls the middle? If Casemiro and Bruno dictate tempo, Spurs are in trouble. But if Bentancur and Maddison can get space, United could crumble. So who lifts the trophy in Bilbao? Spurs' story would be beautiful. Their first European title in 40 years. A team with something to prove. But we're going with experience. Collision Sport Lab predicts Manchester United to win the Europa League final. Bruno to be the difference maker. United to edge it, 2-1. Late drama, maybe even extra time. But that's our prediction. What's yours? Will United bring home more European silverware, or will Spurs finally end the drought? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment from the biggest nights in football. This is Sport Lab, football analyzed.